Shalom from Jerusalem. I'm right in Jerusalem. You can see on my left is the Mount of Olives, place where Yeshua went up from. On the right side, old city of Jerusalem, and we are in the middle of Feast of Sukkot. And I have many conversations with people, and people ask me, did Jesus celebrate Feast of Sukkot? Did he celebrate biblical feasts? And answer is surely yes. Yeshua was born and raised in the Jewish tradition. He did celebrate feasts, and all the apostles, they were celebrating feasts, and including Feast of Sukkot. And Feast of Sukkot is beautiful, but today I want to emphasize what Yeshua, what Jesus have done on this feast, and where New Testament speaks about it. So John 7, verse 2 says, "But when the Jewish festival of Tabernacles was near," Tabernacles in Hebrew is Sukkot. The tabernacle is Sukkah, and tabernacles in plural is Sukkot. Yes, it's a time to build Sukkot or to build tabernacles. So Bible says here it was Jewish feast, Feast of Tabernacles. And in the middle of that, there were great discussion, wonderful discussion between his brothers, his family. Are you going to come to Jerusalem or not? Eventually he comes separately to the feast. And right now, today is Shabbat, between beginning and the end of the feast. So we are in the middle of Feast of Sukkot. Around me, very special atmosphere. It's more than just normal Shabbat. It's Shabbat in the middle of Feast of Sukkot, Feast of Tabernacles. It's so beautiful. People are praying, walking around, thinking of God here in Israel. It's a wonderful time, and it's really a time of God's blessings, because every family, when they gather in Sukkot, they're taking fruits of the tree produced and raised here in Israel. They go out taking fruits of the trees and eat them in their sukkah. But today I want to say, I want to just notice what Yeshua have done in the same day. We were speaking about Sukkot in the beginning. I'm going to speak about Sukkot in the end, and now we are in the middle. So verse 10 says, however, after his brothers had left for the festival, in Hebrew it says for the Sukkot, for the festival, he went also, not publicly, but in secret. Verse 11, now at the festival, or at the Sukkot, the Jewish leaders were watching for Jesus and asking, where is he? Verse 14 says, not until half through the festival did Yeshua go up to the temple courts and begin to teach. So we see right in the middle of feast, Yeshua began to teach. He's staying in the Temple Mount, in the temple, in the courts, and speaking to people and teaching people. They had very interesting discussions, and I'm not going to go to the teaching of Yeshua on that day, but actually John 7, we see sermon of Yeshua, of Jesus, given on the days of Sukkot. And he spoke about Moses and law of Moses, and about circumcision, and about his Torah, his teaching. And in Hebrew, when you say teaching of Jesus, in Hebrew we say Torah shel Yeshua, Torah Yeshua. Our Torah is the teaching, right? So Yeshua speak with the Pharisees, and he sharing about truth of God, and they kind of challenging him and asking him, how can he teach about such a deep matters, because he wasn't study, he wasn't one who got education, and they mean spiritual, religious, rabbinical education. Yes, Jesus haven't had it. He raised in synagogue, he knew to read and write, as we know, but he was preaching and sharing heavenly teaching. So in the middle of Sukkot, 2,000 years ago, Yeshua was in the temple. You can see temple on my right. Yeshua was right there speaking, preaching, teaching. He faced confrontation, but he didn't care. It was part of his ministry. He faced confrontation and continued to speak the truth. But also, he healed the sick. In this chapter, we see how he healed the sick on the Feast of Sukkot, on the Shabbat day. So he was, like today, on the Shabbat day, in the middle of Sukkot, he healed some people. Later we're going to speak about last day of feast. It's also very important, also mentioned in the same chapter. But can you imagine, Yeshua was here preaching about Sukkot when all around where Sukkot were built, like today, like in our days in Israel. And it's amazing, but we see Old Testament and New Testament come together, and the most important, that's the message of Sukkot for present day. What does God doing in your life, in my life, in this time? But also his message about glorious future, how Sukkot will be fulfilled. We're going to speak about that more. And meanwhile, Shabbat Shalom, and blessings, Sukkot blessings from heaven in the middle of Feast and Shabbat for your life, for your family, blessings from Jerusalem.